Hey everybody, welcome to the Better Pleasure podcast with Beau O and Stevie E. Hope you guys are doing well. And on this episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about gay marriage and society and the Bible. And also, we are going to do some reading from what's called the Changed Movement at changedmovement.com. I wanted to do on this podcast to talk about gay marriage.
All right.
Kind of always a hot topic.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to talk, also read a little bit of from changedmovement.com. It's really cool. I met these. I met this ministry at a pastors leaders conference, and they have a book that's called Changed: Once Gay and Transitioneer Stories. And it's really cool. I was reading through the book, and I thought the stories were amazing, so I wanted to kind of look on their website, and I saw that they had stories on their website too. And it's really cool. Like if I show you this, I mean, our listeners won't be able to see this, but you can just look at the pictures of the people and the stories, and you kind of go, okay, this is going to be interesting. Their stories. And their stories are cool, how they come to Christ and kind of their life, and it's really interesting. And so I wanted to also read some of that as well. So we can start off by I'll read this one, Simon Noel. And you see pictures of this person.
Uh-huh.
You're all, whoa. And if you saw these pictures, you'd be like, wow, this is interesting. And then there's this quote: ever since I surrendered to the Lord, he has walked with me through every phase of reclaiming my true identity.
Okay.
And so it's really cool. Like this one says, I identified as a transgender woman in Malaysia for 18 years. I began to feel like I was a girl at a young age as a result of frequent sexual abuse, which began when I was 9 years old. I was molested secretly by trusted adults, but I was too afraid to tell my family. As a result of the abuse, I became uncomfortable around men, assuming they were all sexual predators. I felt safer with my mother and my aunts and began to identify more closely with them. When I looked in the mirror, I always saw myself as a girl, and as a result, I began to develop a feminine-like shyness, as well as a girlish mannerisms. As I developed same-sex attraction, or SSA, I wanted men to notice me more. My parents, however, did not approve of my effeminate behavior, so I was frequently scolded and beaten and was often the subject of their arguments. Then when I was 13, my male cousin, who had already begun identifying as a woman, took me to a brothel to meet the oldest trans-identifying person in Malaysia. The place was filled with transgender women who, to me, looked very beautiful. Because I had been experiencing dysphoria as well as SSA, I was drawn to their lifestyle. This is who I'm meant to be, I thought to myself. After returning home, I started to steal my mother's makeup. I also fantasized about piercing my nose and ears to wear long earrings. Within a year, I ran away to visit the brothel again and to further explore the idea of trying to identify as a woman. As I watched and listened to these trans women, I became even more interested in adopting their lifestyle. They coached me on how to make changes and even suggested surgeries to help me manifest feminine-like features. Honestly, it was an exciting journey for me, as I was able to embrace a feminized identity without fear. One transgender friend in particular became my mentor. In retrospect, I believe she actually brainwashed me to go through with surgeries. So they're interesting, huh?
I mean, yeah, there's like layers of trauma here we're hearing about.
Yeah. So it says, unfortunately, I did not know enough to question her advice. There was no education about masculinity offered anywhere, and no understanding counselors who could help me make any sense of my feelings. If I had been given the motivation to build my life and carry on as a man, I would likely have chosen a different path. Without proper guidance, however, at the age of 20, I started consuming hormone pills and performing laser hair removal on my face. At first, the pills made me feel sick. I'm so tired, so I tried injections instead. As my skin started getting tighter and softer, I told myself, the man is gone and the woman is here. After that, I started waxing my legs and growing out my hair. Because I needed money to buy more girly stuff, I began working in a nightclub as a dancer. I knew that the curvier I looked, the more money I would make, so I decided to have breast augmentation and silicone injections in my hips. I felt victorious once the surgery was completed. It was an amazing feeling to look at myself and seem to see a real woman. However, after 2 years, I started feeling dissatisfied with my lower body. I told myself it was not enough to have breast. I also needed to have a vagina if I truly wanted to please a man. So I went through with my bottom operation. Although the surgery was extremely painful, I felt it would be worth it in the end. By age 25, it's hard to believe, right? By age 25, dude, 25, like when I look back, I'm 52, man. I look back,
Yeah.
25, I was so young.
But yeah, I mean, but when you're 25, like that seems like forever. I remember feeling the same way. Not this way, but in my 20s, like like this is it. This is my life. Like this is the way it's going to be forever now. And I look back now and I'm like, what were you? You were like 22 years old. Like, yeah, it's a trip.
I know our perspectives, though, are a little
Yeah.
weird. By age 25, I was fully transitioned, and though I was satisfied with my looks, my lower body remained numb for almost 2 years. Woo! At first, I felt very happy with my new life. People praised my beauty everywhere I went, and I felt like I was living a dream. Many men pursued me. I wish people could look at the pictures, because if you saw the pictures that we just saw, right,
Yeah.
you kind of go, wow. And I was often the center of attention. To solidify my new identity further, I got a doctor's letter confirming that I was a woman despite my male name on my identity card. I had a job as well as a bunch of girlfriends. No one knew I was actually a man unless I told them. Life was amazing. During this time, I had one long relationship that lasted for 5 years. I loved this man from the bottom of my heart, but I felt used by him for sex and money. Eventually, he took all my money and left me. I was so brokenhearted I wanted to end my life, and in fact, I attempted suicide by hanging myself from a ceiling fan. At that moment, I literally felt my spirit leave my body and float above me. But the very next second, I rapidly dropped back onto the earth and was received as the ceiling broke down. Somehow, I knew God was giving me a second chance. After this incident, my mother started meeting with me and speaking with me about God. Before, I would get irritated whenever she mentioned Jesus because I had been worshiping idols even though I was born into a Christian home. But this was different. Something inside me was ready to listen. Simultaneously, the trans-identifying friend who persuaded me to have surgery insisted that I go to Indonesia as a prostitute. But this time, I refused. At a loss for what to do, I called my mother and asked if she would accept me back. I was 28 years old when I moved home. My mother then invited me to church with her, and slowly I started pursuing the Lord. I left all my bad habits behind, like drinking, smoking, drugs, and pubs. But I was still living and dressing like a woman. Then one day, my pastor, who knew I was trying to straighten out my life, asked me if I would counsel a trans man who was considering surgery. I wasn't really ready to engage or counsel others since I still looked like a woman, but because the pastor had asked me to, I agreed. I was shocked as this man entered the room. It was love at first sight, and I had to tell the pastor I couldn't counsel this man. It was too much for me. Smitten with one another, we were both thrown out of the church when we began a relationship. This is when we found Kingdom City, the church we still attend today. In the early days of our relationship, me, and now my wife Ruth and I, were both still embracing our transgender identities. Then one Sunday, our pastor preached about healthy relationships, and as he talked about God's design for marriage and his creation of male and female, we both fell under the conviction of the Holy Spirit. Immediately, I sensed that the life I was living was not right. Ruth felt exactly the same. At that moment, we both knew we needed to repent. Once back home, I decided to cut my hair and desist back to male. My family, who had been praying for me for years, greatly rejoiced. Miraculously, the moment I determined to desist, my beard and mustache started growing again. Then, within 2 months, I underwent surgery for the removal of my breast implants. To my surprise, the same doctor who performed my initial augmentation was now helping me to desist. Remembering me, he apologized for doing my augmentation in the first place. A year after desisting, Ruth and I were married, and today we lead a ministry at our church.
Oh, okay.
Unbelievable.
Okay, so I'm a little confused. It, Ruth is a man or a woman?
So Ruth is a woman,
Okay.
but when when this person was asked to counsel,
Uh-huh.
it was because Ruth was going through a.
Oh, okay. So Ruth was going to become a man. Wanted
That's
to become-
right.
Okay, that's where the confusion. I thought it was like another man.
No.
Okay, because he said I fell in love with this man.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, this is a man getting ready to become a transition to a woman.
Yes.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that's a trip, man.
I know. It's totally interesting. Okay, so let me go back to where I was at. Let's see. Let's finish it up. It had been 6 years since I stopped identifying as a woman, and ever since I surrendered to the Lord, He has walked me through every phase of reclaiming my true identity. In my brokenness, I had been seeking a worldly love that I thought would satisfy, but after the Lord set me free, I experienced a greater love. Sometimes I cannot believe I am actually living as a man and doing the things that men do. Even so, I still battle the side effects of the surgeries and cross-sex hormones I subjected myself to. The silicone has damaged the nerves in my thighs, making it difficult to walk long distances or perform strenuous activities. And weight gain in the absence of hormone supplementation has also been an issue. Desisting has been something of a battle, especially since I cannot reverse my bottom surgery. And despite removing my implants, I still have a bumpy chest. And so I sometimes struggle with dysphoria because I don't exactly look like a normal man. Nonetheless, God has assured me that despite the physical damage done to my body, I'm still a man, and He loves me just the same. I know He will continue to mold me to become the man He created me to be. It helps when I remember that it's the condition of my heart and not my body that's utmost important to God. And so that's the story of Simon Noel. And man, unbelievable. I mean, you look at the pictures and you just go like,
So is that far one? Is that when he was a woman?
yeah,
Okay.
wowee. And you just go, oh, unbelievable. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, very, very pretty, very beautiful, and just, wow, what a story.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in that out there, you can go to changedmovement.com and go to stories and read some of these various stories. I have the book, and it is really neat. You have these really short testimonials that are throughout the entire book, and the book is super good size with pictures and everything, and it's really neat. I know there's a part of our culture that would hate this kind of stuff, and they think it's like, man, it's
What do you mean, which culture?
like part of our just social culture.
The fact that you're saying like maybe the trans community
Yes.
would be upset by this person's come out saying like it was a mistake,
Right.
I regret it.
Right. And I know that's a part of it. Like there is people that are like that, but you know what? These are true stories too. I mean, these are honest stories.
And what I'm surprised about is he found this church that didn't kind of like run him out of town as soon as he showed up.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And was like, was willing to walk with him through that, and wasn't kind of like, yeah, this isn't the place for you. You need to go someplace else.
Yeah, and I think there's another book called Walt Heyer. Walt Heyer, and he was a man who went through a transition to be a woman for years and years and years, and he went in and out of the church, different churches, and his story is unreal as well. Walt Heyer, and he has videos on YouTube and stuff like that. But I hope that our church, is one, and I know I've talked to the leadership here about this issue before, is that we can practice some patience. If we find out someone has gone through some kind of transition and is at the fellowship and coming into the church and and receiving the Word of God.
Has that ever happened here
Um,
that you're aware of?
uh, Maybe once or twice, now that I think of it, but nothing that has like a person's come repetitively.
No, nothing like this story.
No,
here.
nothing like this story. Um, and when it comes to the other topic that we're going to discuss, and that is one of gay marriage, I also kind of think that you have to be patient there as well. You know, in our culture, like within the church, you know, and the reason why is because like guys like me who aren't from a church background, and you know, when we enter a church building, we're kind of scared. You know, we don't know what to expect, and sometimes we just want to learn about God. Like that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're trying to learn about God, and so we need some time.
Yeah.
You know.
What I liked about that story is at the end he said, you know, there's still issues. Like he still, the way I took it was like, you know, sin has consequences, and I'm still feeling the effects of those consequences.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of times we want to give these testimonies and be like, and everything's great now, and you too can have this if you just come to Jesus. Like, no, like some things will never be made right on this side of eternity, and you know, even after you've repented. And it's just important to know that sometimes. And even on his own testimony, he kept sound like there was times of backsliding, like he was 2 steps forward, you know, 3 steps back. And I think that's the way a lot of our testimonies are sometimes.
Yeah.
It's always great to hear those testimonies like where, you know, I did an altar call and everything was great after that. But I don't really feel like that's the truth all the time. I feel like that's more of an exception.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's you know, we all got to be patient with each other as we are growing. And you know, I love how that person Simon talked about, you know, the work of the Holy Spirit. And isn't it neat how the pastor was teaching and preaching, and the Holy Spirit spoke to this person, and that's what we have to be patient for. That's what we're being patient about. Is will the Holy Spirit speak to this person on an issue? Because if the Holy Spirit's not touching their heart and not moving them, then how am I going to move them?
Oh yeah, you can't. And I think that's where we run into problems a lot of times. We want to get in there and help the Holy Spirit out, you know, and make things happen and get in the flesh and you know, talk people into a relationship with the Lord. But someone can always come along that's more eloquent than me and talk them right back out of it, you know?
Yeah.
So it has to be a move of the Spirit
to
see that real change.
That's a great point, man. That's a great point. If God does it, it'll last forever.
Yes, exactly.
So cool. And gosh, I mean, amazing. They're married and you know, live, you know, just have a great relationship. I mean, what a testimony for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's crazy where God moves and how he moves. And yeah, like you wouldn't think like in a broth, you know, God's just moving. He's always on the move.
Yeah.
He's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, he's that's right. I mean, and we have to remember that.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes people don't, you know, I've heard Christians like bag on strippers.
Uh-huh.
You know, and people that bag on strippers have, first of all, never met a stripper probably. You know, because, you know, there's like, if you know girls who have gone, and I've actually had youth girls that I've known as I've taught them in youth ministry grow up and be strippers, and have totally backslid and went into stripping and died of drugs, and visiting them in the hospital when they're dying, and it just zaps your heart, man. But I even before that I've met strippers, but they're real people and they're real issues.
So many of them are broken, because I've known some strippers too, and
yeah,
I don't think I don't think people know this, but most of those girls, to get up on stage and dance, they're under some kind of influence of something.
Right.
They drink a lot. They do a lot of drugs to get up there and do what they do.
Yep.
It's not some empowering thing.
Yep.
Sure, maybe there are some that
Yeah,
it's like this women
there's maybe
feminist march they're leading, but most of them are very broken people, and
yeah.
they don't like what they're doing. It's like means to an end for them.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of stuff going on. And so, man, the last thing I want to do is, rip on a Rahab,
Yeah.
biblically speaking. You know, you don't want to tear down a Rahab, when God says, "Hey, the Rahabs, I like Rahab."
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, yeah, we're always, I don't know. I just always try to remember where I was when God found me.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe I wasn't taking off my clothes for money, but I had like my own
Yeah.
stuff going on that's just equally as bad.
Yeah.
And I just try to just remember that and not, because it's very easy for me to try to look down my nose at people
Yeah.
and see things and be like, I don't like that. I want God to smite those people.
Yeah.
And I really got to check my spirit when I catch myself doing that.
Totally. Okay, so I was watching I watched this a while back, but it was on YouTube, and I sent it to you really late, or today, but it really late in our our talk of when we're going to do
Yeah,
this.
I got a chance to watch it on the way in.
Yeah, same-sex marriage debate, Julian. This is Julian Michaels, the lady with Matt Walsh. So it's kind of old news in the sense that it happened a few months ago, 6 months ago or so. I remember when it came out, and I watched it then, and then I kind of rewatched it. And I love it because it's a great discussion. It's super good. There's a lot of things to kind of think about with this issue.
It's only like 23 minutes long, but it's like there's so much there to unpack.
Yes.
I'm not real familiar with Jillian Michaels. I'm familiar with Matt Walsh.
Yeah.
Not the biggest fan.
Yep.
of Matt Walsh.
Yep.
I feel like he's kind of bully. I feel like.
Yeah.
A little bit of
his personality is like, he reminds me of just kind of almost like he's just got an interesting temperament, like where it's not the dude I'd want to hang out with.
Yeah, he's very I don't know, a little self-righteous maybe.
Yeah, the way he comes off is just he's just not a very, it doesn't seem like he's a very friendly, affable guy.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of usually the people I like to hang out with are a little more kind of outgoing and friendly and that kind of thing. But he's with Jillian Michaels, who got her fame from, of course, all the exercise programs, being on that fat loss show years ago, and then she came out as homosexual, and she's kind of got a story herself, of ups and downs and everything like that. But I found first of all, I just thought, like, gay marriage is something that really a lot of people have a hard time talking about.
Yeah.
I think when you talk about, like, some people will go like it's not marriage at all. Like, and some people say that at all. Like, like gay marriage, there's no such thing. Because when you think of like the definition of marriage, some people do go to like the dictionary. I don't know if you noticed though, but the dictionary,
it changes because she was using the dictionary, and the definition obviously has changed.
Yeah, doesn't it? I mean, you've gone to the dictionary online, right?
Yeah.
Before?
Yeah, I have. Yes, I have.
It feels like it's like the definitions are changing.
Oh, they always do, because they always update the dictionary.
Yeah,
and they're always every year they come out with like a new list. Like, we added 4 new words to the dictionary this year, and they're usually like trendy words that are gonna disappear in another 10 anyway. So.
Right. Yeah, so it's like, she's trying to define marriage through kind of this online Webster's kind of thing. A lot of us as Christians, when we are asked about marriage, we look at it through the lens of what we call the authoritative word. So we believe that the Bible, the 66 books that make up our Bible, is God breathed. That it is literally, when it was penned, it was perfect.
And that's where I think Matt Walsh dropped the ball, because she brought up God more than he did. And I was like, he was trying to come in his own authority. I would have personally, if I was having that conversation with her, because she asked him, well, why do you feel this way? And he would, well, historically, marriage has been blah blah blah. I would have went straight to the Bible. I was like, these aren't my opinions, Jillian. This is what the Bible says. Like, this is where I get my what I believe from, because I have all kinds of crazy opinions. There's times I open the Bible and I'm like, well, that's not how I would do it, God. But I got to fall back to like, well, God's the authority though. So what does God say on the matter? Because it doesn't really matter what I think or what feels good to me.
Right. And he, sometimes we try to make a point that are like Christians will make the point of like there is no such thing as marriage apart from biblical marriage. So as we're looking at the 66 books that make up our Bible, we are looking at finding our definition of marriage from that material, from that what we believe is an authoritative material. And there's reasons why we believe it's authoritative and all that kind of thing. But other people who aren't from that side, that aren't of that worldview, they're looking at another group of material that they find authoritative for whatever reasons that they are holding to. And so they're saying, hey, we believe this is authoritative, so this is our thought on marriage. It's okay to be homosexual and be married. And you're just looking at your material and you're saying, and that's right, everybody is looking at their material and saying, hey, this is what's authoritative and this is why I believe it's right, or this is why I believe it's wrong, and this kind of thing. What I kind of find interesting about this topic is that Jesus, when he's asked about marriage in the book of, it's recorded, one area where it's recorded is in the book of Matthew, where Jesus is asked about divorce. And when he's asked about divorce, he actually says, have you not read? He actually rebukes the religious leaders and says, man, haven't you guys read the first few pages of the Bible? Basically, Jesus talks that way. He says, haven't you not read that God made them male and female? For this reason, a man shall leave father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Therefore, they are no longer two, but one. So it's interesting that Jesus wasn't saying like, hey, and this is what's interesting. Jesus wasn't saying King David wasn't married to 20 or so women. Or Solomon wasn't married to 700 women. Or Lamech, the first polygamist we read in the Bible, wasn't married to more than one woman, etc. And what I mean by that is those marriages were marriages.
Okay. All right. We're in God. Where are you getting with this? In God's eyes?
Yeah. I mean, because when Jacob is married to his wives, plural, there is no like word of that he's supposed to treat. We even get, I'll use another example. We even get from, Samuel, that he has two wives, but he's not to treat one worse than the other.
But they always do.
Yeah.
He had Rebecca. And Rebecca was his favorite. And we saw what the outcome of that was.
Yeah, and it's not that polygamy was right, but we see that they are married. They aren't to treat those women as unmarried women. And so Jesus is not saying, hey, they weren't married to those people. But what Jesus is saying is that's not what God intended. Okay? So Jesus says, the Pharisees want to debate this idea of divorce and remarriage and all this stuff and the intricacies of that talk. And Jesus pulls it all the way back to when things were good before the fall of Adam and Eve, and says this is what God intended. that man shall leave father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two become one.
What you're saying reminds me of the story I heard. I don't know if I brought it up on the podcast before about this guy who's doing missionary work in Africa, and I guess polygamy is still a big thing over there.
Oh, yeah.
Even amongst Christians.
All over the world.
And so he was over there doing, he's a, Westerner, American, over there doing, and he gets over there and he's shocked to see that all these, African preachers and ministers, that they're polygamists.
Oh, yeah, you did mention something like that.
And he's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you can't be doing this. And he's like, he's like, what are you talking about? The divorce rate amongst Christians in America is just as high as it is amongst non-believers. I would never divorce any of my wives. So, like,
yeah,
who are you to throw stones at me?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of, yeah, and that's an interesting, I mean, yeah, okay. So let's look at, Jesus points back to what is the implied, what is the intention of God? That God had an intention for man and woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that from the fall, we see with Lamech, the first guy who breaks this, and he goes and he has multiple wives.
Mm-hmm.
And it trickles down. It just keeps going and going and going and going and going. And even though in the Torah, in the book of Deuteronomy,
mm-hmm.
it says, hey, the king is not to multiply wives. The kings just,
that's like the first thing David does. Is start multiplying wives.
Right. They do it. But they are to treat those women that they have married, second, third, fourth, wives as wives under the law.
Uh-huh.
So they're not to, and they're to protect them, everything like that, financially support, everything like that.
Uh-huh.
And so there is obviously there is a intention of God
mm-hmm.
that Jesus seems to be very clear about. So much so that people are kind of floored at what he's saying.
Uh-huh.
And their responses to Jesus when talking so narrowly about marital relationships, they say, well, man, if this is the case, then it's better for a man not to marry.
Yeah.
And they're getting the idea that Jesus is being very narrow,
uh-huh.
Saying, hey, one man, one woman, this is what God intended. But there is in the society unions that take place that that should be upheld as for protection and whatever reason, protecting the kids or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
That is it's a law based on the social system
mm-hmm.
that is apart from God.
Uh-huh.
It meaning it's something that humans made up.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I see that Julian Michaels is talking about, is this kind of made up system
uh-huh.
of the world, of laws, and saying, hey, why is it bad to have gay marriage? Because it protects, if you have two loving people that are hanging out together, isn't that better? Like, even if they're homosexuals, this is her argument,
uh-huh.
is that, okay, you have two homosexuals living together, and they truly do care for one another. They have compassion for one another. They have kindness for one another. They respect one another, and they adopt children. Maybe they do that. And so they have children. Is that not a better environment than half of the relationships that are out there in this world between monogamous heterosexual marriages, that where a dude is drunk, beating his wife, and they have the kid they stay together because the woman will never divorce him because she's fearful of divorcing him, and those kids are raised in a environment where it is toxic, beyond toxic. They can be molested. They can have all kinds of issues going on. That was her kind of big thing.
And so, what do you think?
I knew you were going to put it on me.
Yeah, well, because I can tell you what I think.
Yeah.
I think okay. I okay. Gut reaction. I hear what she says. I want to agree with her.
Hmm.
I want to agree with her. I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, okay, but that's not what the Bible teaches. So
Uh-huh.
the way I look at it is that she's getting in the flesh, and she's thinking there is no God in her world. So she's like, we got to step in and take care of these kids, because if we don't do it, who's going to do it? And that's my initial reaction as well. And then I got to pause and check myself and be like, no, God loves these children. He cares about these children even more than I do. So I need to let God handle this and not do what looks right on the surface when it's going against God's word. It's just like if you have like, I believe in the scriptures, it says a woman is not supposed to be a pastor over a head of a church. So it doesn't matter if she can get up there and preach better than Beau, and she knows the Bible better than Beau. God says you are not to do that. So just because you've been given this gift, and well, I could really get up there and I could take the congregation in better places than Beau could ever. I can run circles around Beau teaching the Bible. God has not given you that authority.
Yeah.
You cannot step out of God's authority without. You can't. I mean, you can.
Yeah.
But that's not where you want to find yourself.
Yeah, I think one thing different, or I think where some of those examples, maybe that it's not apples to apples, is that the woman pastor is still working with the material of the male pastor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're working with the biblical text. We might disagree 100% with what the Bible's teaching, but we're supposed to be adhering to it. We would agree there.
Yeah.
Where the Julian Michaels on gay marriage idea is that it's a worldview that is apart from Christianity.
Uh-huh.
It is not looking at Christianity as the authoritative word on what marriage is. And marriage throughout the world has taken on different kind of meanings based on that society's worldview. So whether you're in whether you're in Japan or whether you're in Russia or whether, you know, wherever you're at, you know, the way you're thinking about marriage is contingent on your worldview. And a lot of times, like in Rome, it's just based on what is approved by the government of a society. So if a government says, hey, it's okay to have 3 wives, you know, for various purposes, then that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in that sense, yeah, then I agree with her.
Yeah.
But if you're a Christian and you
Right.
call the Bible your authority,
Right.
it crosses all borders. It doesn't matter if you're in Japan or Russia
Right.
or anywhere else.
So I think like, okay. So I think like in that way, like there is, as a Christian, I have to realize that not everybody on the planet has a Christian worldview,
Yeah.
or has had a Christian worldview. Many people have been, have come into the world through many variety of relational types, right? Some through, a guy raping a girl, horrible examples, right? A guy marrying 15 women, this kind of thing. Marriage itself, though, seems like there is a broad definition in our country that just says like, hey, it's just, we do define it as 2 people. We banded polygamy actually a long time ago in our country. But it's just between 2 people. It used to be male and female, but now it's changed. The courts have changed that and said, no, it can be now male or female. But if they still hold to this basic understanding, this real broad understanding of 2 people cohabitating in a committed relationship, then it is considered a marriage. And I think, and that's something that I would agree with you on, that is totally different from a biblical worldview. I can't say to someone who's not a Christian, like, you need to adhere to the biblical worldview when they don't. That's not their authority.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. Like, I'm like, do whatever you want to do. Like, yeah, go for it. I don't understand as like, as like, and if I was a non-believer, I'd be like, why do you care? Why do you even want to get married? I know before I was saved, I was like, I don't want to get married. That's like for squares. Like, I'll shack up with some chick. Maybe we'll have a couple kids. And like, if it don't work, like you go your way, I'll go my way.
Yeah.
Like, that was like, okay, mom and dad, like you're going to get married. Ha, that's corny.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't care at all. And it's the same
yeah.
thing with like drugs. Like this push to make drugs legal. I was like, to me, part of the fun of doing drugs is it was illegal. It felt like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, man, I do drugs. Like,
Yeah,
come
yeah.
over here, let's go behind this building. And
Yeah.
and now people are just like doing drugs, walking down the street. And I'm like, half the fun was illegal. I was breaking many laws and doing all kinds of bad stuff.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So yeah, I don't get like the big. If you're not a believer, what do you?
Yeah,
why do you want me to accept your marriage? Why do you want me to legitimize it?
And this is what she said. This is what she was saying is, it's that it protects any kids that they've had. So that kind of marital union will protect kids. If there's rights, she said there's over 1,000 rights that people have when they're married, and that so like for all kinds of reasons, hospital reasons, things like that, taxes, blah blah blah, protection of the economics, all the way to making decisions in a hospital, these kind of things. And so she was saying that's why, this marriage thing is so important, to have gay marriage, is that you now fall under the government's protection in this relationship. Now you're no longer kind of an individual under individual laws. Now you are a collective under collective laws, and so your kids have rights now and certain things.
Yeah, it's one of the two defenses. That's the pragmatic one, and there's the love is love one. So she's taking the pragmatic one. It's not the love is love. She seems kind of more, I don't know, right-brained, is it? More logical thinking person.
Yeah.
So she's just looking at totally pragmatically, like, well, there's these protections that are put in place, and, it's good for business. It looks good on the books. So, yeah, I mean, yeah.
But I understand that. I mean, there's pragmatic ideas do have there's a reason why people are pragmatic is because they work.
Yeah.
So it's like I understand that. So I get that. I get that. I think what Matt Walsh could have said is this. Let me run this by you.
Okay.
Is he could have said, you know what? Okay, you want the protections of marriage and all that, then why don't we call it something different? Why don't we call it, like, isn't there common law marriage? And there's other things, like, can we give it its own category?
Well, they already tried that. Like, wasn't it Obama? We're gonna have civil unions, and you'll be afforded all the rights.
Right.
But we're not going to call it a marriage. It'll be a civil union.
So why can't we just do that?
And because they did, and they were like, oh, that's okay. Yeah, that's cool. So we got your civil unions now, and now we got a few years down the road, and like, no, I don't like civil union. I want a marriage. You got a marriage. I want a marriage. Why can you have a marriage and I can't? Bo?
See, that's the interesting thing. Is like that is the interesting idea. Is okay. So I want a marriage. But thing is the problem that I see with that is that if we start going down that road, then we push an envelope to everybody, right? Yeah. Hey, why can't I get a marriage?
Yeah, why can't I marry this rock over here?
Why can't I marry, why is polygamy wrong? Why can't I marry? Why is polyandry wrong? Why is polyamory, polyamorous relationships wrong? Why can't we consider those marriage too?
Oh, what I think Matt Walsh should have done is because she kept pushing like, well, is it a faith thing for you? And he's like, well, yes, that's a part of it. I would have been like, because marriage is a picture of what our relationship is supposed to be with Christ and his church, the bride. And you're messing up the whole picture. It's like when, Moses hit the rock twice. You messed up the picture now. You hit the rock once. You don't have to hit it twice. And that's why I view marriage this way. And all this other stuff, I don't personally, I don't really care about. This is why I feel this way about marriage, because it is a picture of our relationship with the church and Christ.
Yeah, and someone might go like, "Hey, but I'm not a Christian. I was raised by Roman, people that believe in the pantheism, faith or whatever, and I get that, and I would be like, hey, I understand that marriage has been defined by different people over different times for a long period of time, Okay, how about this? This is another thing I think of. And I think Matt Walsh could have gone here. And it would have been really cool, I think, if he did. If he said, there's a way to figure out what is right and wrong in the world based on extrapolating what you're doing to everybody.
Okay.
So if you say gay marriage is right, then what if everybody was in a gay marriage? So let's take that. Okay, so and let's see if this is a way we measure if this is good or not good. Okay, so let's extrapolate that idea. Okay, so you're saying gay marriage is right. Yes, I say gay marriage is right. Nothing's wrong with it. Okay, so if it's good, then what if everybody does the good? And you're calling good the gay marriage. So if you're calling the gay marriage good, then it must be good for everybody. Or do you because then you would run into a problem, right? Because then you would say, well, my gay marriage is good, but your gay marriage is bad. So but if gay marriage just in general, like a loving gay couple coming together and saying, I want to be married, if you're saying it's good, then it must be good for everybody. And so if you extrapolate that into the world and say, okay, now what's the ramifications if 20% of the population goes that route? What is the ramifications for 70% of the population to go that route? And what is the ramifications if 100% were to do that good thing that you're calling good? And to me, that might be a way of argumentation that brings someone who does not adhere to a biblical worldview, brings them to a place in even a secular way of argumentation by helping them see that maybe that there is a societal ramification for what you're calling good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can see where you're going. I don't know if they would, though. I think they'd be like, yeah, great. Everyone's gay. Awesome.
Okay, so what's the ramifications?
Yeah, I guess we stop having people.
That's right. So it's extinction.
Well, because, yeah, but I don't think they want that, though. I don't think that's their argument, though. So, because I know from what I've heard that gay people refer to straight people as breeders. It's like an inside joke, like, oh, breeders. The breeders, you mean? You're talking about the breeders? So they kind of already, like, tongue-in-cheek recognize, like, well, we need the breeders. We need to make more gays.
Yeah. And I think there is the obvious elephant in the room, and that is this idea of progeny and the idea of you can't have children. But the thing is, if you're calling something good, then is it good for everybody? And you'd be backed into a corner. You'd have to say, well, yeah, it's got to be good for everybody. I'm calling it good.
But I feel like most of the time they're like, they don't. What they mean more is like that it's you're good. Your relationship's good for you. This one's good for me. You do you. I'll do me.
Yeah, but to me that is inconsistent. Meaning, if you're calling something good, then it wouldn't it be good for the person down the road, and wouldn't it be good for the person over in the other city, and wouldn't it be good for the person in the state and in the country, and that kind of thing. And the way we can measure if something truly is good is if everybody did it. What would the ramifications be? What is the ramifications on the planet? Because Matt Walsh was trying to argue, like, he was trying to say, hey, the way you're seeing marriage, Julian Michaels, isn't good for society. And he was trying to argue, and I thought he was hemming and hawing, and he wasn't doing, I thought, a very articulate job. Where, to me, the way I'm arguing is a way to bring a person to a place of saying, is really my relationship good?
See, if you did that to me, I would just turn it back around on you. I'd be like, is your relationship good, Beau?
And that's right. And I would say, okay, yes, one man, one woman together for life can be extrapolated into every person of the planet. And I believe it would be a good relationship for women. It would be a good context. It would be a good contextual relationship for men. It would be good context for kids. It would be a good context for the environment. There's a lot of things I could argue of why one man, one woman would be a good context. And if everybody did it in the world, it would be beautiful.
Well, she kind of touched on that because she goes, well, what about, we have a heterosexual relationship and, he's a drunk and he's an absentee father and he beats his kids. Is that good?
Right. And the answer to that one obviously is no. But I'm not arguing that there is not bad relationships within one man, one woman. I'm not arguing that point. I'm just arguing the point that is it a functional and a potential better environment for every person on the planet to have a marriage defined as one man, one woman? Would it work for everybody on the planet? Environmentally, in the right context for children, a great context for women's safety, a good context for men, that kind of thing.
So you're on the Jillian Michaels show. That's how you're going to come at her.
I would come at her like that. I would say, yeah, I would say, yeah, look at it, because I would put her in that play. I would put her in the idea, because she would have to answer the idea of like, okay, I believe my relationship is good.
But I don't. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I think you'd like, I got her, and I think she would like, but then I don't. At the same time, I don't feel like I brought her any closer to the Lord.
No, this is a total, yeah, totally. And this is totally a secular way of determining if something is right or wrong. So if you weren't going off the authority of the scripture and you were just trying to talk to someone about this issue, could you argue in this way to help them think more about their union?
Yeah, I don't even know if I could do that. I don't know, because I always default back to like scripture, because my first idea, once again, gut reaction, Jillian Michaels like blah 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 blah, and I'm like, whatever, give it to her. What do you want? You want more rights? Here, I'll give you extra rights too. Just shut up and go away. I don't want to deal with you. But then I fall back on, it's like, okay, well, what do I know about sin?
Sin
has a decaying nature.
Yeah.
So if we start letting these things kind of out in society, what kind of eventual, but like again, she's not a Christian, so she doesn't understand this.
Right.
So it's kind of like,
yeah, and Assyrians, and Romans, and I mean, all the people, the Asian cultures, and they all have different definitions of marriage, and that's and so I could just say, yeah, this is my viewpoint from Jesus, and they might go, yeah, okay, that's your viewpoint from Jesus, but this is my viewpoint from. But in society, if we just look at our society in the United States, secular, I could argue that way, because if everybody was gay, then it also does something else. If everybody's gay, then we don't have progeny, right? And then we force, to me, like you have to have government dictate children. It becomes Brave New World. It becomes Huxley, where you have government making alphas and betas, right?
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of where we're headed.
Right, but but this is my point. Is like, is this not a way, when you read Brave New World, do we read it and go, that's not right? Like, it's not right for the government to make babies in a laboratory and make them with particular temperaments.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's an interesting question because the way I look at it, if I'm like a Jillian Michaels, like a totally pragmatic person, I'd be like, yeah, that seems really effective and efficient. Let's do that. Let's do that. I have no say in it. Like they're gonna put the chemicals in my little beaker, and I'm gonna come out the way, and I won't even think about it. It's like he says at the end of the book, like, well, you're hiding these books from me. He's like, they wouldn't understand these books anyways. You don't understand, do you?
yeah,
You don't get what we're doing here. And like the music and my freedom and the art and beautiful and like people don't even think in those terms anymore, buddy. Like you're outdated. Like
yeah.
these people are happy this way.
Yeah, and this is and what Brave New World kind of brings to fruition. I think that's so great is that and this is it can kind of go into what we're talking about here is that you substitute authority,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what you're doing. That's what they're doing in Brave New World. They're substituting authority. Now the government and quote science, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Mustafa Mond, the chief cook,
Uh-huh.
he calls himself. He's like, hey, I'm just putting in my own recipes, right? It's great.
Yeah.
Mustafa Mond is like today's scientist, right? He's like, oh yeah, we know we're manipulating everybody, and all by the term science. But that's what we do. Mustafa Mond admits that,
Yeah.
that we're just putting in our own recipes to manipulate the world.
Yeah.
And it's really cool how Huxley already knew those things back in the 30s, 1930s.
Yeah.
But it's like but what you learn in Brave New World is that they just substituted God for government.
Mm-hmm.
They just said, hey, we don't want God, so we're going to throw out God's authority, but we replaced it with government. Now, this is my point, is that if you extrapolate what you're calling good to everybody in the world,
Uh-huh.
and that forces the government to get their hands into
Uh-huh.
progeny, into offspring,
Uh-huh.
right? Then haven't you just substituted, God for government? And you've rejected God and God's ways.
Uh-huh.
You said, hey, we don't want that. We want our unions the way we want our unions.
Uh-huh.
But if your unions are such where you cannot have progeny, and everybody did that, and you have to call it good because you're doing it
Uh-huh.
and you accept it, then in order to procreate, there has to be some people making children.
Yeah.
And so this is where Brave New World comes in. So now you have a government who has taken the place of God. And so to me, like, gay marriage could force government to come in.
Getting a little off topic though, but I don't think that was Huxley's like sole objective because he's down on God too. The people that do have God are the savages. They're out there backwards, living in another
Oh yeah.
olden times, and they have all these rituals and stuff they've taken from here and there. So he was like down on religion too. He's kind of just very cynical, like, well, which one? Pick your poison.
Yeah.
Do you want super authoritarian science, or do you want to be a backward savage that worships made up people?
Right. Yeah, no, totally. No, but I'm just saying that he obviously saw that something was going to replace the savagery of ceremony, of God's ceremony.
So, and it seems worse.
Yeah, and
It definitely seems worse.
and it becomes this crazy, really sad society, right? Of really no freedom. And so, it's interesting, but I don't think Jillian Michaels is thinking on that level of like, is this really moving us to a place of more government oversight because of my lifestyle? Does my lifestyle force government interaction? And that's an interesting question. Does the way I live my life force the government to intervene?
But we could say the same thing about Christians, because then we want to make all these laws that push our views and our agendas. And like, okay, now is my views forcing more government participation in my lives and lives of everybody else? So it's kind of like we're all guilty of the same thing. We all want what we want. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think what what I'm trying to kind of hone in on is that if I live one man, one woman,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need anybody to assist.
Uh-huh.
And Julian Michaels called this the unicorn world, the fairy tale world. Everything's perfect in procreating,
Uh-huh.
right? Because there's the potentiality for children,
Uh-huh.
one man, one woman,
Yes.
kind of thing, and that kind of idea. Okay, so then, and so the government doesn't necessarily. It's not it's not a necessary need. The government's not necessary in procreating there.
No.
Right? But if it isn't one man and one woman, but it's one man and one man, then there is an assistance needed.
Mm-hmm.
There is a third party
Uh-huh.
that's needed. And so if that, so the more male you have,
Uh-huh.
the more third parties needed.
Yes.
And so that third party can grow, and grow, and grow, and grow. And in Brave New World, it seems like it has literally become the dominant.
Uh-huh.
The third party became the dominant,
Mm-hmm.
right? So instead of having individualistic freedom, really autonomy from the government of just, I can procreate without the third party,
Uh-huh.
that, no, we're not going to, the third party is going to be the assisting party in procreating.
Yeah, it's crazy because that's what happens in Brave New World. But at the same time, which is kind of weird, they had sexual freedom. Like it was encouraged. Like the hookup culture was encouraged in
Right.
Brave New World, and even it says amongst the children, it was like, oh, what's the big deal? Kids are like experimenting with each other. Like,
Yeah, it's just as long as they don't, it's just getting rid of the idea of procreating,
Yes.
right? Which is a big deal.
Which could be, I mean, now listen, you say this, like it could be like satanic almost. You could look at it, because in what way are we more like God than when we create another life?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to everything's like a symbol for God and our relationship to God. So that could even be viewed as maybe satanic,
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what I'm getting at, is with that substitution of God.
Mhm.
It's like you is it almost like the epitome of idolatry to strip us of our individualistic autonomy to procreate and to live in a way that the third party, this government thing, this hegemony, becomes the sayer in who's going to be your child and how many kids you're going to have and what those kids are going to be like. It becomes the ruler, the God, and is that not like the epitome of an idolatrous kind of world?
Yeah.
So, so that's kind of I know that's a kind of a real drill down argument.
Yeah.
That's kind of a heady argument.
I mean, it's kind of like the way I look at it, that argument is like the checkmate. It's like,
Yeah.
it's the death move, the dim mak, bam, like you're dead by death touch.
It's heavy. I think it's a heavy, and to me it seems kind of solid, like of a secular argument. Of course, you could always come back and say what you said, and that is like, well, hey, maybe, the heterosexual marriage isn't good, and it affects the kid, and that's true. And maybe the homosexual relationship's not good, and that affects the kid, and maybe the polygamist marriage is, I'm sure there's people out there that boast in a great polygamous relationship, and they go, I got a great relationship. I got 12 wives, and they're beautiful, and they're wonderful, and the wives, you interview them, and they're just like, oh, it's great. Like, have you seen on YouTube these little shorts of Muslim women sharing about why Muslim womanhood in marriage is so good?
No, I haven't.
You gotta watch them, dude.
But it's like, I mean, the same could be said for Christians. Like every marriage, like every family's dysfunctional. We're all dysfunctional. No matter what we say
Uh-huh.
about how great our childhood was or how great our marriage is, I know the Bible says that's not true because I'm broken and you're broken and I'm a wicked sinner, and I know that because I read it and that's what it said about me. So if it's true about me, it must be true about you too.
Yeah, I know totally. But but these little clips are interesting because it's just people that are trying to convince other people that it is okay for my husband to marry another woman if I don't do such and such, or I see that there's a benefit to this kind of relationship, this marriage in our religion. And they're trying to, and that's what everybody is trying to do in a sense, is convince people
Oh yeah.
of what is, that this is good, that this is good, this is the right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, yeah, we're all trying to pull people to our team, and we're all seeking. We're all seeking for something. I believe that, but Jesus said the road is narrow, and there's a wide road and a narrow road, and few will find the narrow road. And it's very easy to. We're all going to be. There's so many people get led astray.
Yeah.
And I know people in my own life that like they watch these videos put out by the Mormon Church, and the Mormons. I don't know what it is, but they seem really squeaky clean. And there's like something like who doesn't want that? Like, that they look so happy and well adjusted, and I want that. And if I become a Mormon, I can have that. Like,
yeah,
my kids will hug me when I walk in the door.
And that's kind of how the Islamic women videos kind of come off.
Yeah.
Is like, hey, we the way we live, we've learned how to live in such a good way that's without all of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And they're trying to convince. Okay, so let me kind of just come to this. Is that in a society, like, we realize that not everybody's gonna like adhere to Islamic marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the United States, we wouldn't, if someone said, hey, you have to adhere to Sharia law's version of marriage, I don't know if any of us would really like that.
Yeah.
A lot of us wouldn't,
Uh-huh.
right? There would be maybe a small segment that'd be cool. Okay, that's cool. That's the way we want it, right? And then there's another group that wants it this way, and another group and we as Christians want it one way.
Uh-huh.
But we do have to realize that we're living in a world where we're not going to be able to. I can't convert somebody
Uh-huh.
through forcing them to see and to live marriage the way I do.
Uh-huh.
That's not going to happen. So there has to be some kind of acceptance of what the society is deeming legal.
So we all get government subsidized coexist bumper stickers.
Yeah. Well, if someone says to me like, hey, like if someone same sex comes to me and says, I'm married,
Uh-huh.
I'm married, this is my marital, say it's a woman, says this is
Uh-huh.
my marital wife, like, do I say to them, no, you're not married? Because the Bible says, one man, one woman, so you're not even really married. No, because they're married really in the government that is
Uh-huh.
ruling our land.
Uh-huh.
They are obeying
Uh-huh.
those laws. And according to that authority, they are married,
Yeah.
And so for me to say, no, you're not married, like that might be rude.
Yeah.
It might be rude. But if I say to them like, yeah, I agree that under the laws of the land
Mm-hmm.
of this country, you are married.
Uh-huh.
In my worldview, which is a Christian worldview,
Uh-huh.
where my authority is a biblical authority, I believe that's not what God intended
Uh-huh.
marriage to be. That what God intended, and this is why we go back to Jesus, right?
Uh-huh.
Is because Jesus tells us what God intended. Even though David was married to those other people, even though Solomon was married to those other people, and those were marriages,
Uh-huh.
it wasn't what God intended.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to say to that person, like, I don't want to just drop the, you're not married,
Uh-huh.
kind of thing. No, they're married. They don't believe in the Bible. They don't believe God's the authority. They went to the laws of the land, the third party,
Uh-huh.
and they went to the laws of the land, and the laws of the land said, yeah, you're married. This is what's in our law. We voted on it. We did this, whatever we did. We went to the court, blah, 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 blah. You did it the way we're supposed to do it, and you're married. So you get all the protections and all the 1,000...
The bennies.
The bennies.
You get all the
Yeah.
bennies.
Yeah, so you get all that, and okay. So, David, you have to take care of your wives. You can't just take care of that one wife. You have to take care of all those wives.
See, that's another place I think Matt Walsh could have took it when she started going, well, we get all these benefits. Okay, why did the government start giving those benefits in the first place? Because they realized that people having children, and we're trying to build a country here, this is something that benefits everyone. It wasn't so I could do my own thing. It was like for the better whole of everyone. So we can start building this country we're trying to make. So let's encourage people to have children and start getting 40 acres and a mule and, setting up shop and doing their thing.
Right, where nowadays the idea is that if you have a third party who can, and this is where Brave New World comes in, technologically do what was not done prior, then the argument of procreation to build a society becomes null and void. Because now the third party can produce the children.
Mm-hmm.
Technology can produce the children. So we don't need the one man, one woman for the progeny of the society to build the society, the work base, right? The workers, right? We don't need that anymore. We don't need them to build the military anymore. We got technology to do that.
See, I think that's where like he didn't foresee that. Huxley is now he didn't take into account AI and robots and all that. We don't need people at all anymore.
And that's interesting. Is that interesting? Does this all become a moot point regardless? Does these arguments of what is marriage, all that jazz, does it become almost like just absolutely nil?
Kind of. It's almost becoming what is human,
right?
And there's like this anime called Ghost in the Shell, and that's what it proposes. Like, what is human? We have these cyborgs, and they're thinking, and they have feelings. So what does it mean to be a human?
Right.
Forget Matt Walsh. What is a woman? What is a human?
Right. What is a human? And if we have technology now that can construct, the Darth Vader, what is it, the Emperor's military,
Yeah.
the Boba Fett dudes, and just
clone troopers.
the clones. If you could just kind of do that, then you have this third party that really is creating its own, if you will, world. That's what's creating the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationships and everything like that. And you become almost like, so you're arguing for gay marriage. It becomes almost like, why would you argue for that anymore? Because the third party now is going to construct a new kind of society.
And so we plug into the Matrix and just create a whole another world to
Yeah,
get away from that one.
It's very interesting how, when we, like, I always argue in this way too. I find this argument, like, Native Americans, indigenous people, were they wrong?
Wrong? In what way wrong?
Were they relationally wrong?
No.
When they, they had sex, they had progeny, they had offspring. Did they live in a backwoods? Were the Indians wrong to live the way they lived? Were the Native Americans in the United States wrong?
So if you're saying like for them to come in and be kind of essentially colonized and like you're going to conform to this standard of living, we want you to cut your hair and do away with your native traditions, and we want you to follow our ways.
Yeah, we want you to have our technology. We want you to, were they wrong just to live by the land, live by the rivers, take for themselves, men being hunters and gatherers, women helping hunt, of course, but also doing what a man could not do, and that is have a child and rear a child, where men could not do that. And so women had to, I mean, they didn't have to, they literally just did that because that was part of the biology, right? Was that wrong? Or is it better now that we have a third party technology, with the technology to create human beings, and is the third party doing things better than the Native Americans?
I think they would. Well, I think you kind of get them in a corner because their gut reaction. I think they'd be like, "Yes, of course, Bo. We've come so much better from that." But then, well, you're a racist.
That's right.
You're a bigot.
See, that's why I love. That's why I love using this argument. That's why I think it's a good argument, because if you say Native Americans are wrong, then that's a big statement. Because a lot of people, when we grow up progressive and left, we are like for Sitting Bull. We are full for the Native Americans.
Free Leonard Peltier.
That's right. We believe they were it was a genocide against them. And so you can't say they're wrong and think of how they lived. Very, very indigenous people. No technology, right? So if you're saying that, hey, my gay relationship is right, and it forces the third party, the government, to have to come in and with children, then is the indigenous world wrong?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like a never-winning argument. Well, there was gay Indians.
Yeah.
And I've heard them talk about that actually once on, I don't know, I was watching a documentary or something, and they had a word for it, and it meant one of two spirits.
No, yeah.
So if you were a gay Indian, they had this name for it, and it meant they're one of two spirits. They have two spirits inside them.
Well, there's no doubt that humans are always fluid, meaning there's in any culture. Humans can go both ways as far as having sex, but the idea of is it in a society, is it good for men just to be with men and women just to be with women? The question is that good? And if every Indian was gay and never was with another person of the opposite sex, then they would not procreate. Right? But now that argument gets mooted out. It's a moot point because now you have a third party who can do it all for you. Yeah. So, but if we were living back then in that world, even though I might be same-sex attracted to people in the world, because there is no technology, I am going to have to find a person of the opposite sex to be with, to be able to have family.
Yeah.
And even in Indian law, there was a certain right that you had as a head of your house.
Yeah, that's like what the Romans did. They had their wife, which was for having children and your status and keeping all that going. And then you had all your lovers of every persuasion and sexuality and everything in between. Yeah,
and so, I think those are interesting, when you look at it like, okay, I'm same-sex attracted, but do I want to, am I forcing the societies to say what I'm doing is the same as that other people? And is my homosexual marriage, is it really the same? And Matt Walsh was saying, no, it's not the same. There's something special about this one because of its ability to procreate. But obviously, with the third party and the Aldous Huxley Brave New World idea, is that we can, by our desire to be in certain relationships, force that third party government to have to come in and step in and do things that we don't no longer find necessary, in our own world. I don't necessarily need a child. I don't necessarily need, right? I don't need to be in a relationship. I'll just watch porn, right? It's like, I don't need to have another person in life. If I want a child, I'll simply just go get one made.
or get a dog and treat it like
or
a
get it,
child.
yeah, or something like that. Yeah, so it's, so to me, I mean, so I kind of come to my own convictions of it, in the sense that when someone says, hey, I'm married and I'm gay,
Mm-hmm.
I understand what they're saying. What they're saying is that under the laws of this land, I am in a union.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm in. And I go, okay, got it. I understand that. And I might have my ideas, just like someone who is, of a different worldview, entirely too. They might have their own ideas. Um, I might share those ideas with that person. Hey, this is my worldview on this. I'm not saying you're not married according to the law of the land. I'm not saying that at all, because you are.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that when I think of who is my authority on the subject of marriage, I'm looking to another source.
Right.
I'm looking at not the government. I'm looking to Jesus.
So that makes me want to ask you. I don't know how much time we have, but it makes me
Yeah.
want to ask you another question.
Yeah.
So, should a Christian attend a gay marriage?
Yeah, man, what a question.
And that's like a whole.
Yeah, that's the next topic. No, it's for some reason in my heart, and I find a burden.
Mm-hmm.
That question brings a burden
Mm-hmm.
in my heart. And that's why I've never attended
Mm-hmm.
a gay marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I've had situations where I could have, and I no longer have a relationship with that person because I chose not to do it.
Uh-huh.
And for me, I just have a burden because of my authority of God
Uh-huh.
and God's word. My heart breaks in a sense for it,
Uh-huh.
and I understand that they have a different worldview, that kind of thing, and I understand that they're going off the laws of the land, and that they have a wonderful, potentially, compassionate relationship with one another and everything like that.
Uh-huh.
But it's hard for me to get out of my mind, what Jesus is saying, the intention for procreation, for marriage, and all this, to glorify God. And so it becomes like a battle within me,
Uh-huh.
to attend something like that.
I mean, I don't know. I like you say that it breaks your heart, because I believe it should break your heart.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be just black and white, because Jesus was relational.
Yeah.
And things broke Jesus's heart when he saw things.
Yeah.
And I think it should break our heart as well. It shouldn't be just so like, no, don't want to go. Like, forget you people.
Yeah, it's not just an argument for me. It's not just like an argument of like, oh, well, it's just a government thing, so I can go, or no, it's not adhering to a biblical definition of marriage, so no, I'm not going to go. It's not the argument per se, but it's my heart in relationship to these people and to God, and and all that together, I guess. And then I think, like, if I'm at that marriage wedding, am I going to be at peace?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I going to be bummed? Am I going to have this conflict within me? And I just don't feel it's even good for the people that are getting married.
Yeah.
For me to be there and to have this kind of war going on in me. And that kind of thing. And so obviously, I wouldn't attend, and I would try to explain that to the person. And whether they, like me at that point or not, I don't know. They might say, well, I just can't believe you wouldn't do that. It's kind of like, would I go to a wedding, like an Islamic wedding,
Mm-hmm.
You know, if someone said, "Hey, Beau, I am Islam, Muslim, and I'm getting married,"
Mm-hmm.
or I am, Hindu, and I'm getting married, you know, or I'm just an atheist and I'm getting married.
Yeah.
Would I go? And, you know, in all those situations, man, I don't know if I would. Because a part of it brings about a conflict in me, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, when my grandmother died, they had like a traditional Catholic ceremony, and they had a rosary the night before. And they were calling me and asking me like, "Oh, well, what time are you getting? What kind of time are you available? Because we want to have the rosary." And I'm like, I, I was like, you just go ahead and schedule it. I'm not going to go pray I attended and everything, but I didn't pray the rosary. I'm like, I'm not going to pray the rosary here. I don't agree with this. I don't.
Yeah.
This doesn't align with my biblical understanding of things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I attended, but at the same time, it was kind of weird and just like, I'm there and, it's a solemn moment and everyone's doing these ritualistic prayers with beads.
Yes, yeah. So I think there's a part of us too, and that's it, where there is some kind of ceremony that's going on that we struggle with the implications of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to understand that people, might not have wanted to come to my wedding, and some people did not come to my wedding because I was getting married in a Calvary Chapel church, and they didn't agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. Like I don't hate them because they don't come to the wedding. I'm not like, "Oh my God, I'm so bummed at you. I can't believe you wouldn't come to my great thing, and aren't you happy for me?" And you know what I mean? I understand. We have deep convictions as people. And I would never, I just wouldn't separate from someone and not be a friend to someone who just was convicted not to come to my wedding.
Yeah.
That's okay, and it bums me out that people do get so mad if you don't attend their ceremony because you don't agree with something. You don't agree with their worldview. You don't agree with maybe the potential ramifications or whatever it is. Like that they can't see that and just say like, "Hey, that's okay, man. I get it. Not everybody's going to agree with my take here."
Yeah.
And so I would hope that, if I, as a heterosexual Christian in a monogamous marriage, can say to people, "Hey, it's okay if you don't want to come to the wedding and you don't agree with it." It's like, it's understandable, It's like, I understand not everybody's this worldview, because I wasn't this worldview at one point, so I understand.
Yeah.
I would hope that people would reciprocate that kind of understanding and tolerance.
Yeah.
So I mean, what you bring up is really cool. I think a lot of people in Christianity would struggle with some ritual of a repetitive nature, like saying the Hail Mary, so many times at a wake. And I've been to those before. But that someone could really struggle with that.
Yeah.
Like, "Hey man, Jesus said don't just pray and this kind of repetition."
Yeah, not only that, but what the rosary represents, and you're supposed to be like praying for the person's soul to get to heaven. Like, there's so many things that go along with it.
And that can burden a conscience, and whatever we do, we have to do it in faith under the Lord, and that's why I struggle with those things. I must say, I struggle with those things. The last, I hope do you have to go?
No, I'm good.
Okay. One of the things I was gonna share is that, even like in David Berlinski, who's not a Christian, and he's a Jewish guy, but when he wrote The Deniable Darwin, it's a book about the end of Darwinism. Kind of like Darwinism is dead, but he's a really bright guy, and he's like 80 years old nowadays. But he's quoting evolution people, and he says, "Those individuals that have the most offspring," writes Ernest Mayr, the distinguished zoologist, "are by definition the fittest ones." And in evolution and in the myth of creationism by Tim Barra, it states that, quote, fitness in the Darwinian sense means reproductive fitness, leaving at least enough offspring to spread or sustain the species in nature, unquote. The reason why maybe I bring that up is this. If you do throw out the biblical worldview and you subscribe to, say, the evolutionary worldview, then homosexuality would be considered unfit, according to the zoologist Ernest Mayr and the evolutionary scientist Tim Barra. Because what they're saying is that the fittest ones in Darwinian evolution is, by definition, the fittest ones is the one who's procreating. And so if you can't procreate, then you become unfit. So if you say you're not into God, and so you're just into evolution, you still run into a problem with the evolutionary worldview, right? Because now you've become a product of the unfit.
Yeah, but it's not that they have an incapability to reproduce.
Right.
They just choose
not to. That's right. They choose not to. So their unfittedness is something that they choose to live in. I choose not to be fit, in the evolutionary Darwinian model. I choose not to participate in my biology.
And Walsh brought that up. He was talking about how, well, it's like a choice. We have all kinds of choices we can do. We all have certain things we want to do. Doesn't mean we should act on them and necessarily do them. So at the end of the day, everything is a choice. I may have the strong desire to reach across the desk and punch you in the face. Doesn't mean I should do it. I shouldn't act on every impulse I have.
Right. No, absolutely. The biological impulse to procreate, I guess, would be argued that is a good instinct to want to procreate, and to deny the evolutionary process, to actually resist it and to say no to it, put you into the unfit category, I guess, of evolution.
Yeah. Well, from an evolutionary standpoint, it must be such a strong desire, because now, like she was talking about, these gay couples go out and they adopt children.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And then she started talking about there's gay animals that adopt these orphan, cubs, and they take them in, and
the nurturing.
Maybe that she doesn't implicitly says it, but she kind of implies that maybe that's our call, or maybe that's gay people's to come pick up these wastrels, unwanted children.
Yeah, well, you can't get rid of the nurturing part of our biology.
Yeah. Right.
We are nurturers, but it still doesn't mean that you've somehow become fit, in a sense, because the species is not actually coming out of you. You're not producing new variants, new potential mutations for furtherance of the species.
So that's where the Mustafa Mon comes in, and now you can take all these different drugs to make you more fertile. Then we no longer have to worry about evolution.
That's right.
Tweak you.
We can tweak you.
$6 million man. We can fix them.
Yeah. So it's like it's funny because you think you're going the evolutionary route, maybe when you throw out God and you go this direction, but then you have the Mustafa Mon where it becomes God, where the Mustafa Mon becomes the Lord.
Yeah, I'll take these eggs from her and I'll put the eggs in you. I'll even fertilize them before I stick them inside you.
Right. And so now someone else is dictating what's going to happen. It's not God. So it's interesting. When it all comes down to it, I find, I guess we all are a mess.
Yeah.
And boy, it seems like we just get messier and messier. That when we try to argue, for what we're into, we tend to get squirrely there.
Yeah.
Are there ramifications for everything? Absolutely. Look at our world. It's pretty messy. But it's a great topic. I just find it a fascinating one. Thanks for, just being on it with me.
No
And
problem, man. Awesome.
yeah, not bad. You
No,
okay?
no. I was always wondering when I was going to get canceled, and I guess.
No. Okay, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks, man.